Hello and welcome to this podcast about sustainable risk management. My name is Caroline, and with me today in the podcast studio, I have the pleasure of talking to our Head of Risk Management Services in Sweden, Andreas Kräling. First, Andreas, can I ask you to tell a bit about your role in IF?
Yes, I will be happy to do. And thanks for having me, Caroline. I'm heading the Swedish part of our risk engineering team on the property side. It's a team of roughly 42 individuals, where I have 12 in Sweden and service the Swedish accounts.
But let's just jump to the first question, that is, what are the main services you normally connect to risk engineering?
I think the most known services and what our clients mainly see as our services when we come out to sites and do a survey. So we visit a client on their locations. We do about 1,500 of these per year, and in that we spend more than 2,000 days on site globally. So we follow the clients all over the world, basically to most countries. And among the services we do besides surveys are, of course, review and technical support on systems installations, commissioning of installations, natural catastrophe analysis, severe weather assessments, and so forth. So it's quite a big palette of services.
Are there other services that are not directly connected to specific client work?
Yeah, we do a lot of claim situation work where, of course, that can be client specific, but it's also where we try to learn and get experience from how to rebuild in a safe way, to learn from the claim and spread that knowledge and that gospel to our clients, how to build sustainable and energy efficient in the future when we rebuild after a claim. So that is a bit more of a generic work, and we use it more broadly to help and support our clients with knowledge. And we also do a lot of research and development where we support different sustainability projects. For instance, Klimpen, it's a national energy project we had in Sweden on sustainable energy production. We look into power to X, where we try to store power in hydrogen gas containers, pumped storage with water, lithium-ion batteries, PV panels, and so forth.
What's in it for our clients?
Yeah, what's in it for them is that if we mitigate and prevent losses from happening, and there is less consequence, also environment and surroundings will suffer less damage, less pollution, and also less things to rebuild, reinstall, and reinstate. And that is a good way to use our resources in a sustainable way. And also there's often a lot of pollution coming out of, for instance, fire water and things like that. Flooding also contaminates quite a bit of the surroundings.
What changes are there to the work we do over the last 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think there's a big change in how we focus on different areas. For instance, the majority of all our clients have sites, buildings, installations constructed during different risk landscapes and exposures. And now we have changed a lot of that. We are faced with more severe weather, more natural catastrophes, and we have to also be much more sustainable, follow ESG agendas, and transition to a more sustainable way of living. And to do that with old buildings and old installations is, of course, a huge challenge. And this is moving very fast.
Could you say something more about the energy-related risks? What is coming next?
Yeah, renewable energy is, of course, something that's on the agenda for everybody. And that's no new thing. But I think also the current conflicts we see in the world has put an even stronger focus on the energy supply. We want to transition to renewable energy, but that is reaching more and more complex solutions. They grow bigger and bigger, and more prototype installations come. And that leads to more risk and exposures. When I started in this business, a windmill was around 1.5, 1.8 megawatts. And now we see very big offshore windmills at around 20 megawatts. So it has moved very, very fast. We're also going further out on deep waters, and that increases the risks for the cables that supply the installations offshore and bring the energy to shore. And I think finally, it's also a lot about how we will store energy. We are good at producing, for instance, wind energy today. But if that's going to be effective, we need to store the energy in thermal ponds, power to X with hydrogen, accumulation banks, battery storage, and so forth. And that is where we try to be in the front line with our clients and to help them in that quest to reach a sustainable green energy supply.
How do we support our clients on these issues?
Yeah, we are of course always indirectly involved with them in projects and so forth, but we also participate a lot in different research and development projects, as I mentioned before. And that is so we can understand what is happening on the market, what is under development and what is being planned for the future, so we can understand these risks and support the clients. And also the long experience we have on maybe more traditional property related risks is really a good combination. So we can understand what happens when you combine existing buildings, existing equipment with putting, for instance, PV panels on the roofs and facades, installing battery energy storage, large scale, introducing lithium ion powered vehicles and so forth. So that helps us, of course. And we always try to support our clients in the project phase so that when they do a project, installing some kind of wind power or energy storage, we will help them to get this done in time so they can get it into operational phase early.
What is our role in projects?
Yeah, we always try to see projects as the energy supply, if we talk energy project of tomorrow. So what is a project today is, of course, the producing unit tomorrow. And that is something we will ensure both as a project, but also in the future when it goes operational as a production unit. And we support it with insurance, but also with our knowledge and experience. And we support them with design. We do surveys. We support the design teams and give our best knowledge to them. So, and the areas we go through is quite different. It's everything from wind power to hydropower. PV panels and solar power is a huge rise right now, but also we are more on pilot-sized projects, where there's a quest for replacing fossil fuels in different energy-heavy industries and also in transportation. So we support them in quite a broad scale, I would say.
What is the effect on traditional property risks we see today with the introduction of sustainable solutions?
Yeah, I mentioned a bit earlier that we have a lot of buildings installations that maybe are a bit older. And when we combine it with the demands of today to make old buildings energy efficient, sometimes they have to add insulations, for instance, to thicken the layer of the coat that keeps the heat in. And if they do that by using combustible insulation, which is sometimes necessary because it doesn't weigh so much, you add fire risk to the building, for instance. We can also see that there are complex systems being added for energy storage. Putting PV panels, solar panels on the roof can be such a complexity. And also we have seen over the time that areas get more and more heavily built with hard surfaces. And when that happens in combination with heavy rainfall, flash flood, we see very severe flooding. And there was a case not long ago in Western Germany that was a good example of this. And I think also one thing that is in common for all this is that the supply chain has been quite volatile over the years. Severe weather is affecting it, but also the quest to seek more sustainable means of transport makes it a scarce commodity to source.
Do you have any examples of changes that we can relate to?
Yeah, some of these are very on an industrial scale, but on a more personal level, I think cars is something that we can all relate to. And many of the parking garages and so forth that we drive to in the weekend when we go shopping could have been built in the 60s and 70s with that kind of risk, that size of cars and those sprinkler guidelines that were enforced at that time. And I mean, if we go back to the 80s, a normal car had a total energy content, if you would burn it out totally, of 6 gigajoules. And today, if you have a big, large electrical vehicle, it can be around 15 gigajoules. So it's twice to 3 times as much energy released in a fire. And also you have the batteries that are very difficult to handle to put out a fire in. So that is a big challenge and it changes the risk landscape a bit.
What type of research are we involved in to support development and sustainability?
Yeah, as I mentioned this with the cars, one thing we have been involved in is lightweight parking garages and the risk of having a big fire spreading from car to car affecting the entire integrity of the construction. The cars themselves, lithium-ion on electric vehicles and commercial vehicles. We are involved in battery production and large-scale energy storage. We do fire testing of combustible constructions and insulation panels. We look into PV panels and how we can install them on roofs safely. Power to X, energy storage, things like that. So I think it's a broad palette, and we try to support wherever we can. So I mean, the final conclusions of this complex world is that the world is going through a very fast transition, and there are some huge investment going on, and there is a need for much new technology. So we have been seeing more of the prototype installations coming out where the risks are maybe not as known as what we normally do. The change is really positive, and there has happened a lot in short time. But we need also to understand how we combine the existing risks with these new solutions and how they can coexist in a safe way. And today, I think, with the conflicts also in the world, there is a huge issue to source materials, raw materials and components to do all these installations. And there's also in every country a big need to build an infrastructure to handle all this, for instance, with energy storage and so forth. So basically, we will still be there striving to be in the front line and to be a part of this development. And we will be there for our clients and support them in the best way possible so we can be by their side.
Thank you, Andreas, for participating in this podcast.
Thank you for having me.